The cafeteria aboard the Zenith Covenant was a cathedral of controlled chaos. Hundreds of species moved through the vast space like schools of bioluminescent fish, their chittering, humming, and clicking, creating a symphony of galactic commerce. Alara Knox sat in the far corner, her tray of reconstituted protein bars and synthetic coffee positioned carefully on the scratched metal table. She had learned, in her 3 months aboard this diplomatic vessel, that breakfast was best taken alone. The other species didn't understand humans yet. They watched her with compound eyes, thermal sensors, and electromagnetic fields, always watching, always analyzing. The Cie. Bound Zalathi whispered about her exposed skin. The crystalline Voth recoiled from her body heat, and the massive Kryn, with their herbivore sensibilities, grew visibly uncomfortable when she ate anything that had once possessed a face. So Alara ate alone. Or tried to. The first sign of trouble was the sudden hush that rippled through the nearby tables. Conversations died mid-click. A Zalathi diplomat's antennae went rigid with alarm. Alara looked up from her protein bar to see what had caused the disturbance. Rune sat on the table directly across from her. The cub was no larger than a terrier. But what it lacked in size, it compensated for with concentrated menace. Its fur was midnight black, with silver striations that caught the artificial light like blade edges. 6 eyes arranged in 2 horizontal rows fixed on Alara with unsettling intensity. Its ears, tall and tufted, swiveled independently, tracking every movement in the cafeteria. "Oh no," Alara whispered. Ruin belonged to Ambassador Theknor, the Savri delegation leader. The Savri were apex predators from a death world, 3 systems away, and their young were raised communally, learning to hunt before they could properly walk. Rune had been prowling the ship for weeks, and Alara had successfully avoided the creature until now. A Voth merchant approached Alara's table, its crystalline body chiming softly as it moved. "Human Knox. I wish to discuss the trade." Ruin's lips peeled back, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. The sound that emerged from the cub's throat was a deep, subsonic rumble that made Alara's bones vibrate. The Voth froze mid-step, its internal light flickering with what could only be fear. I will return later," the Voth stammered, backing away rapidly. Alara stared at Ruin. Ruin stared back, then settled into a sphinx-like position, paws tucked neatly beneath its body, eyes never leaving Alara's face. "You can't stay here," Alara said quietly. Rune's tail long, flexible, and tipped with a tuft of fur that concealed retractable spines, swished once. Decisively. A Kryn approached next, its massive frame lumbering toward the table with a datapad clutched in one 3-fingered hand. "Ambassador Knox. The committee requires your..." This time, all 6 of Rune's eyes locked onto the Kryn. The cub rose slightly, haunches bunching with coiled muscle. A sound emerged, not quite a growl, not quite a hiss that suggested violence in a dozen languages. The Kryn's nostril slits flared. "Another time," it managed, retreating with far more speed than its bulk suggested possible. Alara set down her coffee. "What are you doing?" Rune began to purr. The sound was unexpectedly pleasant, a thrumming that resonated in Alara's chest. The cub stood, stretched with feline grace, and padded across the gap between tables. Before Alara could react, Rune had climbed onto her lap and settled there, a warm weight against her stomach. "Absolutely not," Alara protested. But her hands were already moving to steady the cub. Rune's purr intensified. Over the next 20 minutes, 7 different beings attempted to approach Alara's table. A Zalathi with a trade proposal. 2 Voth scientists, seeking human biological data. A Kryn administrator with forms to sign. A methane breather in an environmental suit who simply wanted to introduce itself. Rune repelled them all with the same efficient menace. A stare, a rumble, and the absolute certainty of violence, should they persist. Alara found herself trapped, literally pinned by a predator cub, who had apparently decided she required protection during breakfast. She tried to shift Rune off her lap. The cub's claws extended just enough to grip her jacket, not quite piercing the fabric but making the threat clear. "You're being ridiculous," Elara muttered. "I'm not in danger from a trade negotiator." Ruan's purr suggested disagreement. Ambassador Theknor arrived an hour later, moving through the cafeteria with the fluid grace that marked all adult Savri. The ambassador stood nearly 7 feet tall, with fur the color of storm clouds and eyes that glowed faintly amber. Conversation stopped. Several beings found urgent reasons to be elsewhere. "Human Nox." Theknor's voice was surprisingly melodious, translated through the neural implant all diplomats wore. "I apologize for Rune's behavior. The young one has been difficult to manage." Elara looked down at the cub, who had begun grooming one paw with studied indifference. "It's fine, I think." Theknor's expression, insofar as Elara could read Savri features, seemed almost amused. "Ruin has chosen you as pack. This is significant." "Pack?" "Savri young bond with those they perceive as strong, as worthy of protection and worthy of protecting them. Ruan has been observing you for weeks. You eat alone. You show no fear of other predators. You carry yourself like one who has hunted and survived." Theknor paused. "In Ruan's understanding, you are pack. And pack protects pack during vulnerable moments." Elara absorbed this. "Breakfast is a vulnerable moment? Eating is always vulnerable," Theknor said, as if this were obvious. "One must lower one's guard to consume. Therefore, pack watches." Ruin looked up at Elara with all 6 eyes and made a small, pleased chirp. Over the following weeks, breakfast became a ritual. Elara would claim her corner table. Ruin would appear sometimes from the ventilation shafts, sometimes from beneath other tables, once memorably from inside a food dispenser. The cub would take its position, either on Elara's lap or on the table itself, and stand guardian. Other beings learned to approach cautiously, to seek Rune's permission before engaging Elara in conversation. The cub proved an excellent filter for trivial interruptions. Serious matters, delivered with respect and proper distance, were permitted. Casual intrusions were discouraged with extreme prejudice. Elara found she didn't mind. In a cafeteria full of aliens who found her unsettling, having one small, fierce creature who saw her as worth protecting was oddly comforting. She began bringing extra protein bars, which Rune would delicately accept and consume with fastidious table manners. "You're spoiling the cub," Theknor observed one morning. Elara scratched behind Rune's tufted ears, earning another resonant purr. "Pack takes care of pack, right?" The ambassador's teeth showed in what Elara had learned to recognize as a Savri smile. "Indeed. Welcome to the pack, human Nox." Ruan chirped agreement, then returned to the serious business of glaring at anyone who dared disturb breakfast.